All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Labs Talk. Welcome, Andreas. How are you?
Hey Sven, doing good? How are you? Once again,
Yeah.
it's been a while since we spoke, right?
Well, I think we've been quite not too long ago, actually, right? So we had quite a good rhythm this year so far, I believe. So yeah.
It's
Great topic
still
so
not
far, I must say.
the cadence. Hmm?
Great
Say
topic
again?
so far, right? So since the beginning of this year, we already talked about quantum, we talked a lot about AI, and now we're gonna talk about defense very soon, right? But let's first check what we've done in
Absolutely.
the last episode, right? Do you still remember? That was about
Yeah, I
quantum.
do. We, that was about quantum. It was about the Push Quantum initiative here in Munich. We spoke to Richard, who's heading that initiative. He explained what the Push Quantum initiative is about, and we learned a lot. And in particular, we learned a lot about the ecosystem that exists around quantum computing here in Munich.
I
Right?
remember it's a student initiative, right? So they have hundreds of
Mm-hmm.
members in their Munich initiative here. So
But
okay, very
they
cool.
also work with the Unternehmertum and the entrepreneurship. And they also do this lecture in the Deutsche Museum.
Yeah, exactly. And have you ever been there, or do you plan to go?
No, not yet.
Do you put it onto
It's
your calendar?
a
So
potential opportunity
okay,
to meet both of us sometime soon, I suppose.
I guess so. So
Hmm.
hard cut, I would say, right? Super hard cut. I mean, we've been talking so much about quantum, we've been talking so much
Yeah,
about
we're
AI, and
jumping
now
topics a bit.
we're totally
We have
shifting
something
gears
totally different.
into a topic that is absolutely important right now, and that's defense. And we have an exciting guest. It's ViKtoria, who joins us from SAP, and I think we should bring her on and get us started with this episode. So let me add her. Hi, ViKtoria. How are you?
Yes. Hi, Sven. Hi, Andreas. Thank you. I'm very good.
Hi, Victoria.
Awesome weather here in Vienna, Austria today, where I'm based. And yeah, thanks
Mhm.
for having me today.
Oh, by the way, I'm gonna be in Vienna on Sunday, so maybe we see each other. There's a half
Um,
marathon in Vienna, right? So
yes, I know. I will be supporting on the front lines.
okay, cool. And I hope that I can still run by then actually, because there's another event happening on Saturday. So let's see. Um,
Fingers crossed.
but let's talk
You
defense
you'll
now.
you'll need the power up then.
Yeah, I will need a power up for sure. And just to actually looking at our pad actually that we prepared, I see a little bit of a relationship to sports and defense here actually too. So but let's start with a little introduction to yourself, ViKtoria, and then maybe a 101 to why defense basically.
Yes, of course. So again, thanks for having me. So as mentioned, I'm based in the beautiful city of Vienna in Austria. I've been with SAP for the past 5 years already, and I'm part of the cross defense industries team, meaning that me and my colleagues we are supporting military organizations and disaster relief organizations globally when it comes to their IT transformation. So as you probably know, SAP handles the trio of personnel, finance, and logistics. And this is exactly where we are supporting the military organizations, so their back office, and in that sense.
Mhm. Very cool.
Hmm.
And
And
when you talk about
Victoria.
military and sorry, Andres, military and industries, how what do you exactly mean with that? So I think is it like their own products that you're creating here, or is it like industry specific, military specific add-ons for SAP
Um,
products?
so actually, it's an industry specific add-on. So as mentioned in the very beginning, we at SAP we focus on logistics, workforce management, and also finance. So we have some very great standalone solutions that we can also use for the military. But then, of course, defense organizations and also disaster relief organizations, as well as the police, they have a slightly different requirements also when it comes to wording. And there we have those industry specific add-ons. So without to give you a practical example and without going into too much detail, especially for the military, having an overview of capabilities is very important. So
Hmm.
needing to know what I need to excel in to fulfill a certain mission. And this, for example, is something that we do with our industry specific add-on, highlighting those capability gaps and then showcasing this to our customers in
Hmm.
the SAP solution.
Nice.
That
Thank you.
makes a lot of sense. But before we go into the more granular details, let's stay a little bit on the surface for the time being. Defense is something that, at least in our show, we haven't covered a lot, but it recently became important also for our joint employer. Let us know a little bit, why is this so important?
I mean, yeah, of course, in the recent years, defense has increased a lot in terms of recognition, and I think we all know, given the current geopolitical situation that we're in with all those different conflicts that we're experiencing, but also. For example, all of those natural disasters that we are experiencing, military organizations need to be more prepared and need to be ready in order to fulfill their responsibilities when it comes to protecting citizens. And this is exactly what we want to support as Cross Defense Industries team, because I think, again, looking at the current geopolitical situation, we have a lot of hurdles that military organizations need to face. And to be quite frank, in the next few years, we don't know if that will change. So having a technology company supporting these types of organizations is really crucial in that time. And then I mentioned natural disasters, and now some people might think military and natural disasters. Where is the connect here? Actually, the military is often the frontline enablers when it comes to natural disasters per se, and we've seen this in the COVID-19 relief efforts when the military supported the public sector in fulfilling the responsibilities because the whole system suddenly crashed. So this is why it's important to also focus on that type of organizations. Of maybe sometimes for a lot of people this is a sensitive topic, but then in a sense still we need to focus on that to protect citizens in the end.
That all of this sounds like a really complex challenge, and I would assume all these situations that require this culture of readiness. All of this is really complex, and I can imagine there is multiple dimensions to all of that. What are the major things that come to mind when solving problems on behalf of those organizations?
Yes, so you're totally right. It's a complex topic with lots of different dimensions, and I really like that you use the term culture of readiness already, because this is actually exactly where we are heading strategically. And to give you a little bit of background, what does culture of readiness actually mean? This broad term, what does readiness mean? And for us as a defense team, readiness is multidimensional. And I know it's very tempting to think you can only be ready in terms of technology, or only terms ready in terms of personnel, or only logistics, but it's actually far more than that. All of that is interconnected. And therefore, 1 year ago, we decided to frame our strategy under the hood of the culture of readiness. Why? Because I mentioned that before already. Military organizations have two very important goals. One of them is D&I enablement, of course, in today's world, utilizing tools like AI to increase efficiency, super important. But then, on the other hand, and I think that's the important part that we need to talk about, is mission readiness. And here, mission readiness can be anything. This can be being ready for natural disasters. This can be being ready for geopolitical tensions. And this is exactly where we want to work on with our customers. And this kind of readiness culture has different dimensions. So we, for example, have personal readiness, where we look at the 360 view of the soldier. We have capability readiness, where we try to help our customers in identifying those capabilities needed to fulfill their responsibilities when we talk about certain missions. We have NATO interoperability, so the data exchange between allied nations and also between systems. And then equipment readiness, for example, where we look at assets like trucks or munition and their corresponding maintenance process. Then very similar to that, infrastructure readiness. So we're not looking at trucks, now we're looking at real estate, and then also factory to foxhole. So the entire end-to-end supply chain process, from the factory, so from manufacturing to the foxhole, to the front line. And
Let's maybe
yeah,
start with the first dimension that you mentioned. And during our pre-chat, I remember that you actually told us that you've been to Bayern Munich, which is like Like, okay, I thought we're talking about defense here, and you say it tells about Bayern München. So how is that related to personal readiness? Your visit to Bayern München, for example.
Yeah. So I know might sound strange in the very beginning, but the explanation is actually quite reasonable. Soldiers are professional athletes and they need to train like professional athletes. They need to be mentally fit, they need to be physically fit, they need to be cognitively fit. And these are all requirements that, for example, sports like Bayern München also has. And here at SAP, we have a dedicated solution when we talk about supporting sports, like, for example, football clubs. And the solution is called Sports One. And Sports One essentially tackles all of that I just mentioned, the physical fitness, the mental fitness, and so on. But everything from Sports One is also relevant to the military when it comes to training their personnel, their soldiers. And therefore, quite a while ago, we decided to switch the interface, make it a bit more military flavored, and then also change the name accordingly. Now it's not called Sports One, it's now called Soldier One for the military, and then also utilize these tools to train soldiers from military organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay, that's interesting. We came across this Sports One in a different context already. Maybe it's worthwhile picking up on that in particular in a separate episode once more. Nevertheless, just for the sake of timing, I'd be curious to learn more about the other dimensions and to move on in what we had there and what you talked about, to talk about not personal readiness, but to to stay in that culture of readiness. You also mentioned supply chain is an important topic, and I would assume supply chain is something that's important even outside defense. How is that, or does that require more readiness in the defense sector?
Yeah, so definitely supply chain is a cross-industry topic. Also here at SAP, and as mentioned, this is one of the core focus areas of SAP as well. But especially for the military, the whole supply chain process is vital when it comes to supporting disasters, man-made or not man-made. And here we frame this under the dimension of factory to foxhole. Now, some of you might have heard factory to foxhole already, some might not. So where does the term actually come from? So factory to foxhole is a term from the military environment, first used by the US Department of War after the Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. And the situation we had at that point in time was the spare parts did not go to the front lines in a timely manner, and this, of course, led to chaos. And in today's world, we don't want to have that situation again. So, factory to foxhole is now the framework for looking at the end-to-end supply chain process again, really from the factory to the foxhole, so we can enable efficient and effective supply chain along the entire end-to-end process. And here again, supply chain is vital. I'm in recent conversations with some customers, we actually heard that supply chain is the heart of military operations, because without supply chain, you cannot prepare for a mission, you cannot sustain it. So here we have a special focus on supply chain as well.
Okay, very cool. I think the first dimension that we wanted to discuss is interoperability, right? So I think in the pad here, I see it's among nations, and also topics like NATO, for example, come into the play here. So is this mainly about having like industry standards for exchanging data and other things, for example, or what
Yeah,
is this about?
so interoperability in a bigger sense is, of course, about exchanging data between nations, but also between systems. And here, from a NATO perspective, there are certain regulations and certain standards, like, for example, LogFS or TOPFAS, LogFAS, and so on, that we actively support. Because, especially, again, given the current geopolitical situation that we're in, exchanging with allied nations is crucial. to benefit from each other, especially when we're really in an active time of crisis. And here we try to support as best as we can, but then also interoperability in a sense, meaning that we need to talk to, for example, the industry, because military assets, for example, have become so complex that military organizations often cannot maintain them alone anymore. So we as SAP, we have the function to basically create a digital takeover, handover process for military assets. And there, again, we have interoperability between military ERP systems and then the industry, like, for example, Rheinmetall.
Yeah, very cool. It's quite amazing actually
That's
how all this applies
amazing indeed.
to the defense sector basically, right? But also to a lot of other industry sectors, right? But of course in a very specific flavor always, yeah. So
Yeah.
let's tackle the last item, which is equipment and infrastructure. So I mean they're already right. So of course military also has buildings, right?
Yeah, actually, the military has
Yeah.
so much, and I just want to touch before we talk about equipment and infrastructure. You mentioned a very important point just right now, that defense is across industries, and this is exactly what we want to tell also our customers. Defense is an industry of industries, so nearly everything that we have to offer at SAP is relevant for the military because, and you said it correctly, they don't just have their own barracks; they also have universities and so on. So basically everything. And here again, we come back to equipment readiness and also infrastructure readiness. Everything that we at SAP have can support them in their underlying processes. And then especially when it comes to equipment, when it comes to infrastructure, which is often operational, so used in missions, we need strong software that supports the maintenance process. And here, SAP really has a key differentiator with lots of solutions like Asset Lifecycle Management or SAP Service and Asset Manager to support these maintenance processes. And then, of course, and here I just want to mention, because now if we have some listeners in that are really familiar with the defense environment, disconnected operations, for example. Disconnected operations is also a huge topic for the military. What if we need to cut off our connection? What if we are in a communication challenged environment? And this doesn't even have to be tied to the military. I mean, here in Austria, for example, we had lots of interactions about potential blackouts because of the energy crisis. So again, cross-industry topic, but here as well, the maintenance process still needs to function. And here again at SAP, we have awesome tools that support this, like for example, Service and Asset Manager, to still uphold these maintenance processes in terms of crisis.
I'm not sure if this is completely
this
suitable,
is
but
all super amazing.
Andreas,
This seems
maybe
so complicated. Huh?
ViKtoria, maybe you
What?
should also sometimes talk to the Deutsche Bahn because they also sometimes feel quite cut off actually. So maybe there's some solution to that problem. So,
Cross-industry.
anyway, so just as an idea. All right, cool.
Seems
So I think
there's room for.
there's definitely room for improvement here. Yes.
I was just about to say this. All of this, ViKtoria, all of this sounds super amazing, and you called it the industry of industries. One thing I want to go back to is how we got in touch to start with. There is this Defense Innovation Hub that is here in the building where we are, and that got us curious, and we got in touch with you over that one. Now we learned a few things that this happened, I think, in context of the Munich Security Conference, but you can tell us more about that, and eventually also for customers. What does that Defense Innovation Hub do, or how is that meant?
Yes. So we as Cross Defense Industries team, we are part of the Munich Security Conference basically every year. And then after last year, after talking to our management, we had the initial idea of creating a defense innovation hub. And a year ago, we didn't really know what it means and how we should set it up. But then over the past 10 months, where we heavily communicated with our Munich-based teams from the Experience Center team, value prototyping, and also the Munich-based management, suddenly all of those ideas came together. And then finally, this year in February, we opened up our Defense Innovation Hub. But what actually is the background? So for the military industry. And we often like to show them what we're doing because the military industry is really a hands-on industry. So there is no better way to show them demos instead of showing them slides to showcase SAP capabilities in different dimensions, again, along the culture of readiness. And this was always the background idea of opening up such a kind of defense innovation hub. And then we did. We had, I would say, quite a successful event with lots of participants, again, from different industries, from the military industry, from the manufacturing industry, from the space industry. We had people from politics there. We had management people from SAP there. And suddenly all of those different customer groups came together and we had the ability to visualize what SAP's capabilities are in the different fields. And here again, now you might be thinking, why, for example, manufacturing? Because a manufacturing process for defense organizations is very similar to manufacturing processes from the manufacturing industry. So again, and here I come back to what I said in the very beginning, the solutions that SAP have are really cross-industry. And that's where we had the ability to showcase what we're actually doing. And now since then, we ramped up the content a little bit. So initially in February, we showed the culture of readiness with different demos that we created within SAP, either from the cross defense industries team and then also with the heavy support of the teams based in Munich. And now we're trying to scale up this content a little bit, add some more other topics to it, like, for example, cybersecurity, to extend the storyline. And I'm really looking forward where we are going with the Defense Innovation Hub. I'm super happy and super glad that we had the opportunity to do something like that, to showcase the customers where our benefits are. And yeah, so I'm super happy and I'm really great that we had the opportunity to do that.
No, really, we're also super happy about all that. And one thing I want to pick on a little bit is this showcase that happened in Munich, and you were speaking about Munich a few times, and I'm obviously now a bit proud of Munich. I'm curious, why does Munich play such a role in all of that you're doing in that Defense Innovation Hub? What's Munich in there?
Now, me as Austrian saying that Germany has a great hotspot, I think means a lot, and but I completely mean it. From a defense perspective, Munich is really unique. We have so many defense startups, manufacturing startups on site. We have the Bundeswehr Innovation Zentrum on site now, and we have academia, like, for example, the Technical University of Munich, and then SAP labs also in Munich. So we suddenly have 4 big players: military, startups, SAP, and academia. And that really makes Munich a unique place to be when it comes to opening up a Defense Innovation Hub. Because the background idea of the Defense Innovation Hub was, of course, first and foremost, showcasing SAP's capabilities, but also leveraging the network and learning from each other in those difficult times that we're in right now.
Right. So I think we're already coming to the closing almost of our episode, right? So and at the end, you always talk a bit about the future, of course, yeah. So how would you, when you look into the future, what do you see happening for the whole sector, basically, of defense at SAP? What are your plans? Can you talk a little bit about the future here?
Yeah. So as of right now, and I think this will hold true in the future as well, defense will be a relevant topic that we need to support, that we need to focus on. So from a strategic perspective, we as team, and I think we as SAP, we want to showcase our customers, existing customers, but also hopefully net new customers, what we can do in that field. And this, for example, includes scaling up this Defense Innovation Hub that we just talked about on a more global level. So also stepping out from only Germany and taking the idea to other nations as well, to basically create interactions with other defense organizations next to Germany, and then also building out the solution portfolio. So here in the team, we have awesome experts that do a lot with AI, with machine learning. So scaling up this initiative as well. Then I'm responsible for disaster relief, and I talked about it in the very beginning. Natural disasters are unfortunately also increasing. So building out this solution portfolio as well. So I believe, at least from our perspective, there is lots to do, lots that we can focus on, and I'm really, really glad to be part of the team that I'm in, and also really glad to be part of SAP that is actively supporting what we're doing in that field.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So I'm really happy that we're tackling all these challenges. Thank you so much for having you actually in our episodes. That was super, super, super cool to have you here. I was very excited. And well, then all the best for the future. Let's talk soon again. Okay. And thanks for listening.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for all the
Have
insights.
a great day. Bye, Andreas. Bye,
Have
Sven.
a great day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.